And I'm just going to say good afternoon, everyone. You are here for an advanced Google Classroom training. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Bond Virginia Bond, Bond like James and Virginia like the state. And I am an ISS Integration of Technology Training Specialist with NARIC. I've been in the position for 5.5 years. After teaching in the North Country at Salmon River for 27.5 years. So if you do that math, my friends, I'm an old timer. I've been here for a while, right? I've been at this job for a while, and really I enjoy the process of working with adults. So I'm either just a little on the crazy side. Well, yeah, no, I'm a lot on the crazy side. It's really good. We'll just go with that. So you are here for Advanced Google Classroom. And I have a few things that I typically like to do, so tips and tricks, but I'm going to just ask you a couple questions. You can give me a thumbs up. You can use the chat. I don't care how you do it. You can also stop me, or you can type something in the chat. I'm very used to watching both of them without any problems. So the first thing is, how many of you are using Google Classroom? Have been using it? Just give perfect. How many of you have been using it more than just this year? All right, so this is what I'm going to do. It's going to make it easy because I'm going to really tailor towards you. So I think that will be helpful. So if we kind of go through and you know how to do this, I won't do it. Okay, and we'll just kind of move on. So that will help. So how many of you, let me do a couple quick things. Excuse me. So we know when we go into Google Classroom, right, we have, I'm in a classroom, I'm in people, but I'm going to come back out and I just want to go look at my classes. So we have a classroom structure here, right? So my first thing I always like to tell people is, do you know you can move your grids around, right? You can click and drag your grids all around, and that's super helpful. So you can put them in the order you want them. Okay, good. I mean, sometimes people know that, and sometimes people think I'm crazy that they did not know that. Yay, Darcy made it through the real way. I'm telling you, I am a little on the crazy side, and that's all good. So being able to move those around, to manipulate those is very, very helpful. So that's like the big thing, because I'm always shocked that people don't know that. Two big things about using a Google Classroom when you're in here. There's an arrow up, which means you're the teacher, and there's a circle, which means you're a student in the class. If you don't have any circles, that means you're not a student in class. So I happen to be a student in multiple classes here. I keep a couple out. So if you're a co-teacher, you also have this arrow up. It's a good way to just be able to tell the difference between the two. People sometimes get lost in them, right? And you're like, I don't know. And how do they come in there? Just willy-nilly. There really is no rhyme or reason for the way they kind of drop in here. But you can, like I said, manipulate them around. You can also change their names for those to kind of make it a little easier if you'd like to. So that being said, does everybody know how to archive a class? You know why you archive a class? Reasoning behind it. Okay, you do. Okay, that's good. So no deleting within Google, like you don't delete a Google Classroom. And the benefit of archiving is that it's like the filing cabinet around the corner. I can pull anything that's in it, take it out and use it again, which is super beneficial. If anybody did any like training within a Google Classroom last spring, and we just happen to maybe end up there again, you can pull some of those activities out and reuse them without remaking them from scratch. Have you reused a post? Like, you guys are good. I love you. You are like, I like learners who know things. It makes my life easy. Fantastic. I don't have to teach you how to log to Google. That's good. All right, so we know how to reuse a post. We can also post to multiple classrooms at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into one of my classrooms. I'm going to come into this one right here. And you'll notice that I'm going to do a couple quick things. I use a very intentional naming convention. So Karen, are you an administrator, by the way? Oh, she's on mute. She's a.
What was that?
Are you an administrator? No. So does anybody share their classes with an administrator? Okay. So I want you to put yourself in an administrator's shoes. And if you had 5 classes and you were administrator and you had 30 teachers, you would have 150 classes. Can you imagine if you had a class and you had lots of them that all said Math 7? Okay, that's a freaking nightmare. Okay, so let me wrap that around a little bit. So if you don't really like administrators, or if you don't like your administrators, or whatever that may be, right? What if you're a special ed provider? Okay, if you're a special ed provider and you are in multiple classes as a co-teacher, and they just say things like ELA 6, Math 7, Purple People Leaders 5. I don't care what they say, right? If you don't have some kind of designation on what it is or who it is teaching it, you don't have a clue. So talk to all your friends and see if you can get them to put their last name at the beginning of their class, because that's just going to make it a lot easier for you to see. And it really doesn't affect that. So if they're totally like, no, I don't want to do that, because some of them are like, nope, don't want to do that. There is another way around that. You can come into the settings down here, and in this section right here, you can write bond slash, ooh, how about bond, not ond, bond slash Preston. We co-teach this together, and you save it. And what will happen is that information is going to come into the header. So even if it just said instructional team, it'll now say bond slash Preston. I love a naming convention that I really love is the last name, colon or space, I don't care, course name, dot, the period. So if this was third period, it would be Bond Preston, colon instructional or tech, dot 3. Because it's going to tell me who teaches it, what it is, and when it is. It's really not so much for our students, right? That's not so much a naming convention for our students. Oh, I like that. The year too, Cindy, that's a great idea, right? So you saw that I had it in mine originally in the class description and I popped it out, but this really cool trick, you can put it here, right? 2014, oh Lord, have mercy. Going back time. I can put it in the description, right, in that section, and then it pops right in there. So I don't even have to have it up in the title. So what's nice about that is, yeah, Cindy, it's great because it's easier when you're looking in the archives, you go, yeah, I think I did that 2 years ago and I think it's in that class and I can find it right there. So that's my naming convention thing. Next thing, the whole header, like if you're into custom headers, which I totally am, obviously, I love custom headers. You'll notice that Google creates like this grayed out thing to it, right? So if you build it the right way, and not just if you build it, they will come, but if you build it the right way, you keep your content over here, you can put your graphics over here. So one of the examples that I have, and I'm going to actually go to Facebook and see if I can find it really quickly. I'm going to just stop sharing for a minute. I have a person who went into Google Classroom. I'm going to see if I can find George. And oh, here it is. Yep. And he made one and I love how it looks. So I'm going to share again. He needed a little help. He wanted to have a piece of information stored, like pinned to the top of his document, like in his classroom. Well, you can't do that, right? You can't pin content in Classroom, but what you can do is you can build it as a header, and he put his office hours up in here. So like, that's a great way. It's a great way to get content up there that you can keep. So this would be content that you didn't want to, and I just love it. He just has his office hours in there. You could put your email link in there. Now your Google Meets will come over on this side, but that kind of puts it over there so he has it in a different place, right? So that's kind of something that's really simple, but super practical. Is a way to use that header in a different way. If you have content that you want to keep towards the top and you don't want to keep moving it, because you could keep moving it, that's a pain though, right? Nobody really wants to do that. So that's a way to put content up in here. And you have basically half of your Bitmoji to put it into. Just keep your header to put it into. Okay, posting to multiple users. I'm gonna kind of go through. So let's do the down, dirty, and nitty gritty. So my biggest pet peeve, and I'm going to do a couple pet peeves. I'm going to make a couple big changes on my classroom, and then you'll see what I mean. So the biggest yank, let's put it that way, that I heard from parents and students alike was that classrooms are very disorganized, right? It's really hard for me to find what I'm looking for. So default within Google Classroom is that everything feeds to the stream, okay? It all goes in there. So I'm just gonna, like, in my classroom, everything has a place, okay? Everything, like my pens are over there, my Post-its are over there, right? Everything. But in the real world, so I'm gonna just play like this. I'm gonna just start bringing all the crap in, and I know it's kind of stupid, but it just makes sense, right? So everything's in one place now, right? The snacks, if I bring the cheese balls over here, right? The cheese balls will be right here. The chocolate bars will be here. We can't function that way. So it's not really practical. So if we use Classroom the right way, we keep our stream clean. Okay, we have a clean stream. And the only thing we put in our streams are announcements. Because if we look at a stream post, and I click here, right? The difference between a stream post and a classwork post is that there's no due date. I can't push anything out through here with a due date. So the way I like to, there's two like analogies I use with this one. One is that I like a clean stream. So the only thing I want in it are things that are undated, announcements, check-ins, SELs, and it's like meeting my kids at the door. So it's like standing at the door in the hallway when they come in and me having a conversation with them. So that's how I like to use my stream. And then I train my students to go to classwork, because like just in my space, like over there, where my papers are, over there is where my folders are, over there is where my notebooks are, just like my classroom would be like that. So I'm going to do the same thing in my classroom. So in classwork, I would keep all my materials and things here, but in my stream, I'm going to keep it neat. So this is how you do it. You come into your settings, you come down into the general, and you'll see right here, you have this little thing called classwork on the stream. And I just wish I could put in there, oh, hell yeah, right? You got, right. No, don't do it. No, don't do it. Okay, we're going to hide notifications. Okay, so once I do that and I hide my notifications, it's going to kick me back out to my stream. You just saw stuff populate out of the way, right? The only thing I'm going to see in there now are circles. The only thing I'm going to see is the circles, so the avatar for myself. And if people come in and respond in here, I'm going to see their circles. That's it. When I get into classwork, this is more like paper. It's a circle, but it's a circle color and it has a different icon in it. Does that make sense between the two? So it's usually harder to train students, but when they understand there's like a divide between them, it's much easier. And for one thing, this is that continual conversation. It's like the never-ending stream of Facebook. That's the way it's built. So the most recent goes on top. I could move stuff to the top, but it gets overwhelming for your students. And I want you to think of students with disabilities especially. It's very hard for them because this is constantly changing. Students with ADD and autistic students, they really struggle in classroom because nothing's in the same place twice, right? They're used to it being here and it has moved down. And they're used to it being here and it's moved down, right? So getting them to understand that process helps. When you have less things in the stream, it's easier. And if you set your classwork up the right way, it's also easier for them to know where things are. So that being said, good with that? Okay, so are you using the upcoming box? Do you know what it is? Do you look at it and go, huh, wonder what that could be? There's a box, you know, it's Google, you could click it, you're not going to break it. So that's, I do like to say it. So if I come into upcoming and I click view all, as a teacher, this is what I see. This is my work that's due. So I just want to go back. I want to like do that again because it's like That was almost like magic voodoo that I just did, wasn't it? Because most of you are going to go into classwork and then click over to grades and go find what has to be done. And I ain't got time for that nonsense. So I'm just going to click view all. And I'm quickly brought in to where I am in my grading procedure. One click. As a student, when I come in this way, theirs is the same way, except theirs has like missing assigned and I think turned in instead of graded. They make it a grade at the end. So it's like the check-in spot. So instead of teaching students to like just go to classwork, have them come in, hit the stream, read the stream. Then they can come in here and they can see where they are in their process. Now, the even better thing is that you can toggle back and forth between all your classes right here. You don't have to go back out over here. You don't have to go back out to classroom. I now have this like toggle spot so that I can literally pop in and out of my classrooms much easier and do my work. So that's a time saver. And I am a huge proponent in you getting back some of your time, because I know that we are all freaking overworking. Because if I'm doing it, so are you, right? And I don't have like people. Well, I have you, but I don't have like, I have you and administrators, and they're much needier than you. So just saying. So that's one thing. Yep.
I had a question about how to put an announcement of a test in Google Classroom, because I want them to plan for that. But of course, there isn't an assignment for a test.
Right. Okay. That's a great question.
So I actually made an assignment that said study for the test. And then kids didn't know what to do with it. And they were submitting.
Nothing.
They got confused by it, but I wanted it to come up in their, in their calendar. Is there any other way?
Yeah, so we absolutely can do that. So there's a couple ways around that. We can actually come up to classwork, right? And that's where I was kind of going there next. I'm glad you have that question. And I can create an assignment, right? And I can say, I could make an assignment. Let me pop back out. Our options are here. We can do assignment, quiz, questions, or material, which might be better, except material doesn't let you have a due date. Okay, so that's the crappy one there. So probably what I would do is I would do it as an assignment. Okay, so I'm going to push an assignment and I'm going to make it. So as much a stickler as I am for naming conventions on actual courses, I like them even more in assignments. Please don't use like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You know why? You have 40 of those. Okay, that's not really doable for a student. So a much better way to do this, and I know it drives some people crazy, but actually use the date. Okay, so I use a 10.21 because I'll show you why in a few minutes. It's actually searchable on your Google Classroom page. If you do that, it makes it easier for your kids. And do you give more than one assignment on a day sometimes? Do you maybe do pieces, or do you, and Brianna's like shaking her head, right? So add a letter to it. So you might have A or you might have B. That would be the second one. Again, this makes it easier. It's also good for when students are out, right? So if you have a student that was sick on the 21st, you can say to them, listen, make sure you go into Google Classroom and you do 1021A and 1021B. All right. So number one, it also keeps them in order through your grade book. And we would do that in our grade books. We would date it in our grade books. So I'm not sure we don't date it here, right? It's like we've sometimes got this disconnect between what we're doing. So we're going to do that in here. And we're going to do study for the test. Okay. So study for the test. So number one. Oh, by the way, instructions are never optional. Oh, heck, this is another, oh, heck no spot. Instructions are never optional. They're totally mandated. I want to change that word. Google's not quite listening to me yet. I'm trying really hard, right? So I'm also going to number my directions. So this is kind of a big shift. I'm not going to write a narrative paragraph for my students because number one, your kids probably won't read it. Number two, you see what I'm doing here? Number two is they get lost in the directions and you don't really know where they get lost in the directions because they just say, I don't understand it. We don't understand what. And it's too much. So first thing is going to be review the last 3 days of materials. Okay, so that's going to be number one. Then I'm going to go enter, enter. Now, why am I going to do that? Why am I not just going to back them up on top of each other? For one thing, it's easier to read with white space, right? It's easier for you. It's easier to follow. It doesn't seem as overwhelming when I have like 6 steps and they're all packed together. It's not going to take up any more space. It doesn't take up any more paper. Let's use it well. It's also easier for students with disabilities to track across it. Using the numbers allows your students to say, I got to step 4, but I'm not sure how to go to 5 or 6. And it also helps you if you come into this and you're like, oh, well, that was, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, you know, Cindy came in and she read through my directions and they're not great. So I'm going to edit them and I'm going to go in and I might make a 2.4, right? And that, or a 0.1, right? I might put a mid step in there that'll help clarify the directions. Directions are never written perfectly the first time for anybody, ever, 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 ever. Some kid will get lost. Probably be more than 1, might be 3, 4, 10, right? And that's when you go back in and you rewrite them. Okay, so review the last 3 days' materials. Go into your calendar. So I'm going to make them do a little bit of the work, Karen, but I'm also going to check it too. Into your calendar. And add Friday. And Friday is going to be the 23rd. Oh my gosh, I cannot type. Friday, 10, we all know that's the truth, as test day. Number 3, study using, those materials, you study using the materials. 4, be prepared for the test, okay? Now, 5, there is nothing to turn in. I mean, you got to tell them this. I'm not kidding. All right. There's nothing to turn in because they're all going to try to turn in something, right? This is a free assignment basically to them. So they're going to come in and you can give them this. And what I say to them, I mean, you can be like trickery. You can have them go into your calendar, add this as a test date. And if you want to know if they did it, Karen, share it with me. You get a pile of them feed into your calendar. You don't have to accept them, right? You can, you don't have to, but you're going to know if they did it. The minute they do it, you can give them credit for it. It's part of the assignment, right? I mean, it's like trickery. Like that? Yep.
So does that show up as an unfinished assignment for them?
It will, but you can delete it when it's done.
Okay, that's what I did. Because I know sometimes it bothers students where they have things that aren't, you know, that come up all the time.
Well, and if this is part of the assignment, right? If you gave them something that was part of the assignment, like the calendar, you could give them bonus points, whoever you wanted to do it. If you wanted to give them points for getting that done, because that's part of the assignment.
Yes.
You don't have to.
And my other question is, how do they see the instructions?
Okay, so let's do one this way. I'm going to add a due date to this.
Because I would like to have a model student that I could see what they see, but I don't. So I don't know what it looks like to them.
Oh, that's a good question, right? Let me pop out of this classroom and it's not going to be this one. It'll be another one. Let me go see a course that I'm actually enrolled as a student. I have to really think.
A lot of times what I'll do is we have like it's called a reach out room where they're more like guided study halls. So the students that are in that, we have to go and check on their work. So I ask their teachers to put me in as a student. So then that way I do see exactly what they see. What I've done in other times is I've asked a friend, put me in your classroom as a student. And then that way I can see when they're posting stuff also.
I know it is. I'm thinking too hard here, but I have a couple sessions where I'm actually a student in a class. So I have to go to a different Google account. That's why I can't find it. I can't find it because I'm not in there like that. So I'm going to go here. I'm using a different browser. Yeah, not in this one. I might be in one of these. Hold on. I only have a few accounts. right there. So this is one of the classes that I'm teaching. So that's the teacher, but I'm also a student in this class. And basically because I created an account that I could do that with. So when I come in and I see classwork, and so this is what my assignment looks like. So you see it like pops as a little box. So it's very similar to what you have. It's got a little different feel. So a way to kind of play this, if you kind of want to play with things a little bit, there are a few ways. It depends on how much your tech director likes you. Okay, and I know that's a really weird question to say, but some tech directors will let you have like another account within the district so you can be a student, or they'll have like a demo student, right? Yep, Karen, you're still on mute. Yeah, if you can have a demo student, that will do it.
I asked for that and I was told no, but.
Okay, so what I did, right, and you'll notice, you notice all of my, these are all me, by the way. So I do look like I have a little bit, right? I have like a class with like 8 people in them. Every one of those accounts is me, right?
Okay.
Right, because what I did is I created some so that I could create it in a Gmail account so I could play with it.
Okay.
Because I have the same, because I have parents say all the time to me, well, I don't understand what it looks like. So I pop into one of these and I say, okay, this is what it looks like for your kid, right? So you just kind of they have an idea of what it looks like. And then when they come out to the stream and I come out here as a student, right? This is what my work looks like. So I didn't really have anything. I've got everything turned on. I haven't been keeping up. That's why. So like this week, I have nothing this week. And this is what I have. This has no due date on it. So that's what theirs will come through as. It's pretty easy to keep up with it. I also have like the missing. I don't do my homework very much and done. I do some, but not all of it. So you can see that I turned in. The biggest thing I think that students struggle with is, I'm going to go back out. I always get lost in here myself. I'm going to come back out and I go to the classwork and they struggle with this stupid turn in button right over on the side. I come into the assignment. This is the rest of it here. And they just want to click this and turn it in with nothing there. That to me, I don't have a super great answer to that, but if you turn it in without putting anything in the box and there was something that was required to be in the box, you're going to lose points on your assignment. They do it because when they do that, it shows their parents that they did their work, right? If they're getting a parent, right? But that's not truthful. You didn't do anything. So that's why, Karen, I wrote it in this requires nothing to turn in, right? So they know, like, there is a difference between what I have to turn in. So that becomes a policy like you have. I mean, however you want to work that. But you can see that, like, I didn't do anything. So I actually have to add something. Could I mark it as done? I sure could. But I didn't really do anything. And it won't kick it back to me. I think Google's working on that, to tell you the truth. So here's a really kind of good little point. There is a question mark down in the bottom left-hand corner. The question mark that nobody knows what it is. If you click on it and you come in here and you report an issue, right? You don't have to put a screenshot. It will load a screenshot if you want it to. But if you say to them, wouldn't it be great if students turned something in and there was nothing attached, if it gave them like an alert? You can send that to them, right? I've done it, as you can tell, multiple times, right? Because it knows exactly what I'm trying to tell it. So Google listens to people. So don't pretend it's just like it's there and nothing. They do listen to people. That's how a lot of the new updates came through, okay? So I would highly recommend. I have an English teacher at Shazy Central that every day that she's in Google Classroom, she goes in and she sends them a help, like a report or a request a feature. She wants to be able to have bold, underline, and italics text. She's right. She's like, I'm an English teacher. I need to be able to do titles so they look like titles. And I'm like, boy, there is diligence. She goes, to the point that I have the message copied and pasted into a Google Keep, and I copy and paste it in every day. And I'm like, ooh, there was a smart girl. So just, they do listen to those kind of things. Okay. I think the next big one that really comes up is like using Google Meet. Is everybody using Google Meet? So I'm going to come into my settings because this is where that work can be done. So there are kind of two different ways to think about this. You can push Google Meet out through your classroom, right? I'm not through your classroom. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. You could push Google Meet out through Calendar as a reoccurring event. What we're seeing is that students are being quite savvy. My favorite one that I read about last night on the Simple K-12 community was students that were saving the Google Meets and then we're reopening them and watching Netflix on them. You know what? I was totally impressed. And I was like, we can be as mad as we want. That's smart. These kids can't get together, right? Let's call a spade what they're doing. The kids they're really thinking through that process. So there are other ways that some districts have it set up so the only people that can create and end meetings is a teacher. Okay. Not every classroom has, or not every school district has done that. So there are a couple workarounds for that. You can see that I have manage invite codes are set right here and they are enabled. I can disable them. Okay. The minute I do that and I come up in here, you will see it says the class code is disabled. So that means nobody else can be invited to my classroom. That's a kind of a new thing. So you can also see that my Meet link is not set to go here, right? I could make all of my kids get into classroom at 10 o'clock, and then I can push generate a Meet link. And I don't even have to go into settings. So if I do it like this, right? And it says, do you want to do this? Then I say, sure do. And as soon as I do that, there's the link, automatic. So they can see it. I pop it up, it's ready to go. They don't have it preloaded. They don't have it done. So when it's all done and it's visible to students, I can also make it invisible to students. So I can have it preset to go and then come in and turn it on like 2 minutes before class starts. So it's all set to go. I use it for class. I get the 3 kids who come in late, right? You know, because that's what they do. They come in late. That's how they roll. They're always going to do that. I read a really good thing on Twitter this morning. If you're recording sessions, some of you are, they made a good point. They said, record the first 10 minutes until the kid shows up and then stop the recording. And then, or when the kid walks in, start the recording or stop it. That was what the kid came in late. You stop the recording. Then you start it right up again. And what happens is you get the first 10 minutes recording as a separate bit. So then you can send it to the kid and said, hey, here's what you missed. And you have to repeat your directions, which is great, right? So you don't have to go backwards. So if the kid is in late to class, I mean, what would you do in a regular classroom? But there's kids are doing that all the time. So I'm in, I do my Google Meet. I'm going to come in and, oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay. So I'm all done. And now what I want to do is I actually want to disable this. So I can click that little button right there. You see what it does now? It used to disable it. It does not now. I'm going to come back out into my settings. And all I have to do right here is turn it off. So I can turn it on, turn it off. So if you're having issues, that's the way to deal with it. Now, what if they share it? You know, Joe Blow wants his girlfriend in class, Sweet Pea. Okay, Joe Blow wants Sweet Pea in class, and Sweet Pea wants to come to class because Joe Blow was there and they want to talk, right? So he shares the code with her. You can just come in and totally reset it once class started, right? And they don't know it. And it's also a good way to kind of do it so they can't be using the same links over and over again. And this is not always about convenience as much as it would be great, but you don't have to go to Google Meet and make it. You can do it right here on the fly, which I think is really good. This is good if you have kids that are misbehaving, right? Not doing what they should be. All right, that's all pretty easy, right? Let's talk about, I'm going to discard. I don't need that. Let's talk about people. People who need people. I have a co-teacher. Poor Brianna, she's not really sure who I am, Katrina. She's like, oh, she just keeps looking at me going, I was a music teacher by trade, Brianna, so I'm allowed to, she's like, oh, now it makes sense, right? I'm allowed to crack into song every once in a while. have a co-teacher in your classroom. There's a lot of reasons why a co-teacher can be very valuable. They can be valuable if you're out. Make a TA can be a co-teacher. What's not good is having a sub be a co-teacher. Okay, I'm totally not into that. Not having a sub account, and that really is because of EdLaw 2D compliance. We don't want other people in there who shouldn't be in there, but a teacher who works with you is okay. Sometimes a coworker is okay. Let them pop in because you can put them in, you can take them out, like, right? So I could put Erica in this class. I could take Erica out. Doesn't really matter, however we want to do that, right? So that's just Erica's actually a teacher right now. She has a Joe Gray Gmail. So you can see I'm going to pop into another one of my classrooms because I have more people in my other. So in these classrooms, some of the things that you can do, you can have the co-teacher, which I think is valuable. You can have up to 20 co-teachers in a classroom. You may not ever need that many, but like a special ed teacher could have all of the service related providers in there if they wanted, right? So that's one way to do it. You could also have like a team of teachers, like all the 6th graders could be together. You could have all the 6th grade teachers in one group. Also super valuable. Just so think through that process. So the next one down is we have students. So lots of ways to add students, and you've all made it through that. So I know you all know how to do that. You can do the Guardian thing, right? You can do the invite link, which is really the way that I like to do it. You can also type their names in. I'm way more of that. I know it takes time, but it's worth it because I know they all got the invitation. And I sometimes get like, I can't invite my kids because they don't have email, but they don't need email. They don't need email. Once I invite them to the classroom, all they have to do is come to the classroom.google.com and I give them the code and in they go. That's all they need. I just need them to get in once and then they always have it. Okay, so that's that other way. If you happen to be one of those lucky people that has your Google Classroom synced with your student information, then everything kind of just flows in regularly, and lucky you, and not everybody's that lucky. Okay, so next thing, let's do some actions. Okay, so I click the box and then I have the action box will pop up. The one I really like, I can email my entire class all at one time, one fell swoop, woof, right? I can email them. I also can remove those little boogers, right? So let's say this is really funny. I take Sharon Swain out. I don't even know how Sharon Swain got in my class. So we're going to remove her. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to highlight her name and I can remove her, right? So it says, do you want to remove this student from? Yep, I sure do. I don't even know how she got in there. So we're taking her out, right? I can remove people out of the class. So if you're not synced and you have kids moving in and out between class periods, it's a good way to do it. You know, try to keep it as neat as you can. So you remove them, their grades disappear. Beware. Okay, see what I just said? Beware. You remove them, their grades are gone. Make sure you got a copy somewhere, okay? Most of you still have paper copies. I can guarantee you, you all have a paper copy of their grade somewhere because that's how you roll. I know. All right, so the next thing, what else can I do in here? So let's come back in. I can email remove. Oh, my favorite. I can mute you. So mute you. Why would I need to mute you? Well, Colin is typically a very bad boy in class, okay? He does not say things that are appropriate. He's making inappropriate comments. This would be me today, not him. Makes inappropriate comments to his classmates. So what most people will do is they'll pull the comments right off the stream so nobody can comment on the stream, right? But, right, and Katrina's like, yeah, we don't have to do that. We can just punish the person who's not behaving. So what I can do is I can come in up here and I can just mute that person right there. What can they do? They can still submit work. They can't reply to other people's work and they can't post or comment. And I really like that. I think that's valuable. So when we talk about post and comment, the default on Google is always in the middle. And in the middle for the stream is teacher, students can comment, but they can't post. I think you have to build trust with your class before you allow them to post, right? You can get there. Sometimes by December, you're there, right? And there's times I think like our juniors and seniors should have the ability to post because they need to learn how to live in that realm. We are totally in this, we're totally in a world where we're teaching how to be good digital citizens. Sometimes they got it and sometimes they have no clue. You always want to remind your students that anything they type within a Google environment, within a domain, so like a school system, is recorded. And I don't mean on Google Meet, I mean it's recorded. Every keystroke is recorded within a product within Google called Google Vault. And just to know, it is foilable. That's a hard word to say. You can pull it. It can be pulled by law. So if a student was bullied and they were bullied online and it was typed within Google, the district is required to keep it. I mean, they have it, it's all there. It's kind of it's tricky to get to, but it can be gotten to, and your Google admins know how to do that. But if anything ever happened to a student, that documentation could be pulled out of the school's Google domain suite. So if it works for the students, do you think it might work for the teacher? Yep, sure does. Yep, right? Yeah, just something to keep in mind. Anything you type within a domain every keystroke is recorded. Okay, so when they go in and do bullying within Google Docs, and we do know that some of our kids do that because they think they can't be found, we can find it. Okay, so that's just really good to know that that's a possibility. It's not fun to do, but it can be done. Okay, the other one is like guardians. So you can always add guardians, right? So this is my boss, by the way. I am the guardian for her, which is, oh no, I do not want to be, right? So all you would do is you'd come over here into these dots and you would invite a guardian. I want you to know that, and the reason we have this, and you can have more than one guardian, you can have 3 guardians. So you happen to be in an environment where mom lives with dad number 2, and something happens, or boyfriend number 2, or uncle number 3, right? And he goes by the wayside and you have to remove them, you can, and then add a new person in. Yep.
So just a quick question. I typed it in the chat, but that's okay. When you're sending a mass email to all of your students, will it send it to the guardians as well?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Good question, though. Really good. So you can also come in and do this. You can do this, and you can email all guardians. I could do this, copy the message, and then post it there. Okay. So when we talk about that, and what's the benefit of being a guardian, right? The benefit of being a guardian is because you're going to get a summary. And in the documentation, if you kind of scroll down to the bottom, because I'm kind of jumping around, but there is a section in here on what the summary looks like for your guardians. There's 2 kinds of summaries, and there's only 2, and it depends on the email type they have. If they have a Gmail, like this one right here, this is a Gmail, as in a Gmail or an email that is Gmail in nature, like my @narek.org is Gmail in nature. It comes from a Gmail domain. BMCSD, Shen Schools, those are all ones that come, RCSCSD, the hardest email for me to ever remember, is those are all Google domains. So if somebody signs up for a guardianship with a Google domain, they have the option of 2 different email types. They can get a weekly summary or a daily summary. You will find that most people will opt out of the daily real darn quickly because it just gets to be too much. So a middle school, high school student has 6 classes. If me, mama, signs up for first period class and I want the email summary, I get it for all 6 of the classes. Okay. So it's like one and done. So if you happen to be teaching a class 7th and 8th period, think your lucky stars because your friends got them all re-registered pretty quickly with guardianship. So it's one and done. So I would be getting one email daily. So with my Gmail account, let's say I opted into daily, I'd get 1 email daily with a summary of what the student was doing, but it would have the list of all their classes in there, right? Most parents find that very overwhelming, and they can get the other one. The other one is available to non-Gmail accounts. So I think so this account right here, Collins, The Yahoo account, the only kind of email summary that one has is a weekly. So anything non-Google. AOL.com, Slick.com, TimeWarnerCable.com. So I'm hitting a few that I know my North Country friends have, right? They only get the option for a weekly summary. So for most parents, that's okay. They want to do a weekly check-in on their kid and make sure they're doing their work. But the trick comes when they're not and they need a little bit more of follow-up. It may require someone to walk them through setting up a Gmail account, and then they can re-register. You can remove one set and put the other one in. Okay, just so you know that that's how that works. It's not like, well, how come Virginia at K Virginia Bond at Gmail can get a daily summary, but my Music Lady 007 can only get weekly. It's just the type of email that it is. Does that make sense? That usually helps parents a lot when they know that that's an option. So within the documentation, sorry, I made that was a little hard to follow. In this email, so what happens if you don't see the invitation to invite your parents? Has to be turned on at the Google domain. Most people have that on by now. And there's also in here like a Guardian FAQ that can be really super helpful. I think this is the one built by me. Yep. So this is one built by me. All right. So feel free to use this information. I took it from support. You have it. You can make a copy of it. If you love it so much, feel free to put your own name on it. Like, take credit for it. I don't really care, right? Just take my Google trainer name off. You take my image off, right? Just use it, right? It's very helpful for parents to have that information. And I literally copied and pasted it from support.google.com. I just made it a little prettier. All right. So, but it is nice to sometimes have that for parents so they have a little bit of help in the process. Okay, a couple big things. I did put, by the way, the custom header here. If you really want to make a custom header, there's the link to it. It's way down at the bottom. You get links to Google. Let me teach you a couple tricks. So a couple tricks that I use in classwork that are helpful. Can you repost? I sure can, Darcy, and I'm actually going to send it to you as well. When I get done, I'm going to do attendance. I won't send it to you right away. I'm going to do attendance right away because I didn't last time. But as soon as I get the video back, I will make sure that you get it. You're going to get the video and the link to the presentation. So you'll get both. I like to give you that so you can follow my crazy. You're welcome, Darcy, not a problem. So one of the things that I like to do is when I create kind of these sessions, you can see I have lots of pieces in here. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make a new session. We're just going to pretend that I have lots of wonderful things in here because I'm starting to run out of time. I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. The absolute best title for a directions ever. Just pretend it's really not like that. And I have 3 pieces in here. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to add a component. I want to add something from my Google Drive. So I really want to do is I want my students to collaborate on a document, right? I want my students to work on a document together. So what's the problem with that? Is that I don't really have that option. I have my students, right? So this is the big issue. My students can all view it. They're all in one Post-it. They can all edit it. They all write on the same Post-it, which is like, if you've ever done that, that is nightmare, right? All of them editing the same thing at the end. Or I can make them their own copy and they all get their own Post-it. But what I really want to do is I want to create another level in between you all write on one and you all get one. I want to have a collaboration level in the middle. So this is what I would do. I would go into Google Classroom. I'm actually going to do it with the doc instead of a slide presentation. And I'm going to make a copy. Okay, I'm going to make whatever I need. Just pretend it's my template. It can be a slide presentation. It could be a Jamboard. It can be a doc. It doesn't matter. There's my copy. And I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it Advanced GC1. Okay, there's my first one done. And then I'm another one. I'm going to make another copy. I'm going to make another copy. I'm going to have 2 of them. So here's my original. And then I have 2 copies. And I'm just going to rename this. And I'm going to call it ADGC2. Perfect, right? Simple, simple. You notice I had one all done. And then I made my copies. Now here's my trick. Here's the trick that I like to use. So when I am in here, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to open this one. And what I'm going to do is if I was using slides, I would make the first slide a different color. So that when I open it up, it's easy for me to find visually, because I am going to share this with a small subset of my students. I'm still the owner, and they're all going to edit it, right? So on a Google Doc, I'm going to do it a little differently. I can either highlight this up here and just give it a different color like that, which is one simple way to do it, right? That's one way I could do it, and I could push it out that way, or I could actually make the whole page a different color. That will bother some kids. The color is just helpful for me to know. If kids get all weirded out about the color, just say, hey, listen, it's me. Just change my name to a different color. It's all good. So then when I push this out to my classrooms, right in here, right, I'm going to add this. I'm going to come into my Google Drive. I'm going to I try to always do my work and then go into recent because it's much easier to find. Oh, yeah, it would if I was in the right drive. Yeah, let's go in this one. Sorry, that was my bad. So just pretend I built it in the wrong drive. I'm running in 3 different Google Classrooms at the same time. Add right there, Google Drive. And when I come into recent, it's going to pop up. It's going to be pink. I'm going to be able to find it really close. It is right here. I promise it will be pink after it changes. So not can view, but edit. And instead of all my students, I'm only going to give it to a few. Going to give it to those 2. Okay, I could have 5, I could have 10, however many I want. So this is the first set. And I'm going to call this, Advanced Google 1, Group 1, right? It's simple. So when I push this out to them, because they're editing it, I'm still the owner of it. So they don't have to share to me. I own it, they're editing it. Okay, so I'm allowing them to collaborate. So I've got that one all done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same exact thing again, but this time instead of creating it, I'm going to reuse a post. I'm going to do the same exact thing that I just did. I'm going to use that post right there, the one that I just made, and I'm also not going to create, so down at the bottom, it always creates new copies of all attachments. I don't want that attachment. I'm going to put a new attachment on it. Right? Does that make sense? I'm pulling, so like all the directions are written up. Karen's got that kind of like, I think I got it, right? It still brought it. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete it. Now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to add it, but I'm going to add in 2. So the directions are all written out. The descriptors all written out. I don't have to go through and do that. So now I'm going to add 2. I'm going to come up here and do 2. And I'm going to make this students can edit file. And over here, I'm going to send it to a different set of kids. So it's like you do all that hard work first for the first one, and then you reuse the post, you kind of rework it. So the benefit of this is then you can actually have students collaborating instead of like just doing their own thing. Because the benefit of that is if you're teaching anything and you're having kids turn in work, you're not reading 417 pieces of things. You might be reading a little component of it, right? So the other thing is when you do it that way, you also can track who does what, because you can see who did what in the document through using version history. Does that all make sense? Yep, go ahead, Karen.
Does one person submit it in that group, or do they both have to submit it?
No, just one. So that's the trick.
But would it show up as an unfinished assignment for the other person who did?
So what they could do is they could go in and push it and that they turned it in, and then you can say when it's done, one person turns it in and you tell the other person in the group, go ahead and mark done because you are marked done, and then you put a grade in.
So I would mark it done.
They would.
Oh, they would.
They would.
They have I don't know. They have a power to mark their.
Well, they could turn it in and then it would be marked done.
When you
I'm not sure I understand.
When you assign something and you give each, and it makes them each a copy.
Yes.
Well, they go in, they make their edits on it, and then they hit the turn in, and it automatically turns in that doc that each of them has done. So I would imagine any of them would just have to go ahead and hit turn in. And it's
Right.
already attached to their student ID. It's attached to them within the Google. So as long as they hit that button to turn in, if you know how when you're doing, when it's got the list of students on the left-hand side and it's showing you their work and it's got like the little thumbnails on the right-hand side, when you click on any of them that have been done, it shows you what they've got. And if they've done nothing on it, it just shows you the template.
Okay, I'm not sure.
It's okay. You know what? When you're talking grades, so when they turn it in, so you may have one student turn it in,
Yes.
but you'd be assigning grades to 3 of them. The other 2, once you have it and you know it's done, I would say to the other 2, go ahead and tell me turned it in. That was about the only time they could turn in something where they're not really pushing anything to you, but they could type in their group project, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do they mark it done?
So they would go in and turn it in. You were right that you would mark it done. They would go in and students turn it in. We mark it done.
Okay. Victoria, I'm going to share my screen for just a second.
Yeah, sure. But you could also just go in and give them a grade and then it would be finished. They would show up as having an assignment finished.
Okay. So for example, on my screen, on the left-hand side, it's got my list of students.
Yeah, we can't. Can you share your screen one more time, Shelley?
Okay.
Let you do it at the bottom. There you go.
Okay. So on the left-hand side, it's got the list of my students and it shows the students, like if they've turned it in, if it's missing, or, like if it's been assigned. If it's after the due date, it'll say missing. And then the ones that have been graded are down at the bottom and show the grading. Over here on the side, it shows like each student as a thumbnail. If you click on one of the students, and if it was something that you made so that like they each get a copy, if they haven't done anything on it and you click on it, it'll show you the blank template. And as long as they've clicked turned in at the top of the page, it'll show that they've turned it in. And then you can go ahead.
I think what she's saying is that they could turn in a blank template and still have worked on something. Is that what you're saying, Shelley?
Well, it would show, wouldn't it show what was done on it? And since it was the group working on it, each one of them would show whatever it was that was done on it, wouldn't it? And yeah. Whereas if it was the group, and let's say that group hasn't done anything on it, or even 1 or 2 people have done stuff on it, but maybe there's one student that's not doing anything, and they decided just to click the turn in button, it's going to show any one of them that you click on the assignment, it's going to show you what is on it. But then when you check the version history for that one individual student, then that's where you're going to see what they've done on it. And if that student clicked turned in, but they haven't done anything, and they want to get credit for what everybody else has done, you'll see that they haven't done anything, and you can kind of call them on it. So, well, I don't see where you've done anything on this. I see
right.
where you have.
The other thing too, Karen, is to always remember that you're in control of it because you still own it. You didn't make a copy for every student. You still own the document, so you don't really have to turn it in. I mean, I understand, like, as far as an assignment, you want to get it marked done, right? And you want it to be not show up as something that's missing.
Right. So I have a thing where I give it and I assign it to everybody, but they work in groups.
Right.
Only one of the 4 kids turns it in. And the other 3 get annoyed that it's going to say missing.
So what they can do, though, is that you can say to them, you can turn it in at that, when you get the 1 from the 3 of them,
yeah,
they could literally make a document that says, I worked with so-and-so, attach it and load it to you. And then you'd have something that would, number 1, be submitted. And number 2, it would be the proof that they got something done, that it was done in there. That's one option around it. The other option is that they can mark it turned in once you say it's okay. So that becomes like your style, what you like the best about it. Either way works. And it's just what you're the most comfortable with.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. And that's, this is when you get kind of into this, it gets much more detailed, right? So, and everybody's a little different. So at the bottom of the documentation, you'll see that I have put some like best practices for recorded lessons, for any kind of remote learning. I want to tell you quite honestly, due dates is the big one. And I know we're over, I'm going to go quickly. Due dates is the big one for me, only because we don't always know where we are as far as like people's ability to have Wi-Fi. Myself the other day lost it in the middle of downtown Malone, right? And then I'm like, what do you mean I don't have Wi-Fi? It was just, I was like, okay. And then also some best practices for classroom, some ideas that will be helpful. The thing, really think about using Google Forms as much as you can. That's going to help you, especially with sign-ins and credits and attendance. That seems to be everybody's big yank is attendance. My trick for attendance is select all have them all sign in, and then select all in the chat and copy and paste it into a document. Simple, simple, simple. Or use a Google form at the beginning of the class. And when they fill it in, you'll have credit. You'll have a link that, you can ask them a bell ringer. You can, whatever you want to do. That's just some different ways you can do it. Down at the bottom, I did give you lots and lots and lots of resources. There's also more stuff in there that other people have like typed in as they've watched some of my sessions. So this is some of the things that you can use, there's some other ideas that are in there. So feel free to make a copy of this, use it as you need to. My contact information is at the top. As soon as I get the recording back, I will push it out and you will have it. You're going to get the link, you're going to get the recording, and I will tell you that I marked your attendance as complete within Frontline. So you'll be able to go in and print your certificate. You always have my email. Feel free to reach out with any questions you may have, and hopefully this was beneficial. Listen, if you have questions, if you're working on it and like all of a sudden, like Karen's like, yeah, I something, I need help, right? Don't hesitate to ask, right? I work with 135 different school districts. So I see lots of instances of Google Classroom happening all over the place. And if you don't know the answer and you can't find it from somebody else, I also, being a Google trainer, I have access to like 7,000 Google trainers around the world. So that's really, really nice. And like, there's many times I put a question into a group chat, it gets answered in like 30 seconds. So because there's people all over the world answering these things. And that's kind of what we do. Like, we're super geeks. So feel free to reach out with any questions you may have. I want to help you the best I can. I'm going to stop recording. So feel free to reach